Hi, I'm Heather. Hedgepig is back in his bed right now. He needs to take a nap. He was starting to get pretty antsy, but I wanted to get going. This is a book that Hedgepig, my guinea pig, and I read called Adam of the Road. It was a Newbery winner. It was published in 1942 ish. Yes, 1942, written by Elizabeth Gray. And the copyright goes out to Elizabeth Gray and Robert Lawson. So I imagine Robert Lawson did the illustrations. Let me double check that. Yes, inside illustrations by Robert Lawson, cover illustration by Neil Truscott. This particular copy was published by Scholastic. Um, and I found it in a book box. Would never have known that this author existed, but happened upon this book, thought it looked interesting, and I grabbed it. Has a map. I see this as being a book. If your kids or you like King Arthur, Middle Ages, history, I think this is a great book to dig up if you can find it. I haven't really checked to see if you can find it. I would think you could find it because it's a Newbery winner, so I would hope so. I know that Penguin still has a web page about the author. Um, they don't have a great list of the things that she wrote, so that's sort of frustrating. But she's really cool. I looked her up, and she was a tutor. She was born in 1902 in Philadelphia. She graduated from Bryn Mawr, and she wrote under a couple names. She wrote under Elizabeth Janet Gray and also Elizabeth Gray Vining. She wrote books for adults and children, including the Newbery winner, Adam of the Road. During and immediately after World War II, Elizabeth worked for the American Friends Service Committee, and in 1946 she was appointed the tutor to the Crown Prince Akito of Japan, and later wrote the widely read Windows for the Crown Prince. She was also the author of several novels and biographies, and two autobiographical works. She passed away in 1999. Interesting lady. I would really like to read, now that I know that she was the tutor for Aikido. I think it would be interesting to see what she wrote about Japan. And I know that when I looked up some of her books, there were a couple titles that were about Japan. Anyway, back to Adam of the Road. Okay, so Adam of the Road, and I'm just going to give you kind of a, because I don't know if parents are going to be watching this. I haven't really thought about who my audience is. Um, so anyway, but if you have a child who has had some trauma around loss, be forewarned. There is a loss in this book, uh, but there's a reunion at the end, towards the end. So I personally have experienced some losses, and so and it has to do with a pet. So that it was pretty uncomfortable to read that part. But we do have a happy ending in this book, so no worries. It all turns out okay. Um, I could tell, and I have to say, I didn't do my own research into how accurate the history is in this book, but I get the impression that this was not an author who took history lightly. She has, first of all, this map is pretty detailed. It takes you from Oxford to St. Albans Abbey, London, and then through what it must have been like in 1294, back in England, when you were taking the route from London to Winchester, which I thought was really pretty interesting. You're talking rural England in the Middle Ages. So anyway, I thought that was cool. Um, this boy is the son of a jester, which gives you an interesting perspective into things. And essentially, the book is about a coming of age of a boy who is, I think he starts out at maybe 11 or 12. So, someplace in there, he has to develop some skills. There were some parts of it, it kind of reminded me a little bit of My Side of the Mountain, in that this little boy is, he's put in a situation where he has to go out on his own. He has to fend for himself. There are a couple scenes that are pretty dramatic in terms of, he's hungry, he's cold, he's tired. But again, it all ends nicely. And you see this kid grow up, um, and learn to fend for himself. And so I think that that makes it a valuable read, in addition to the history that obviously the author had done her research. It starts off, and I'll just read the first paragraph. Adam. I think all the chapters are broken up into the different characters, and it starts with Adam, who's the main character. After a May as gray and cold as December, June came in, that year of 1294, sunny and warm and full of birds and blossoms and all the other happy things the songs praise May for. Adam Quartermain, who had been looking for his father ever since Easter, thought that now he would surely come. Every morning, when he rolled out of his bed in the long dormitory where the schoolboys slept, he said to himself, "Today he's coming. I know it." And every night, disappointed but not daunted, he put himself to sleep making up stories about how his father would come the next day. Um, One thing I really liked in this book is that, like, okay, so she talks about, the author talks about St. Albans. Okay, there is a St. Albans. So the cool thing about the book, and there are some illustrations inside, which when I was 10, 11, 12, I wouldn't have read anything that didn't have an illustration. Um, but, it's helpful. It kind of gives you, kind of a cool uh, vision to go along with what you're reading. Anyway, you learn a lot about the court. You learn a lot about the geography of 1294 England. And you can look up some of these places. So I really liked that part. I thought that was super fun because as I'm going through, I looked up St. Albans. I looked up the different festivals. Because they talk about the different festivals where this jester, who was kind of an elite jester, so that was kind of interesting too. The difference between the jesters who were sort of scrapping for donations and stuff. And then, there were other jesters who were kind of considered more professional and made it, I don't know if you'd call it a decent living, but they seemed to do okay. They were fancier jesters. So I did not realize that until I read this book. And yeah, I liked it. I really liked it. The bad guy is a bad guy. No question about it. He's definitely a villain. Um, but you have some sense of what justice at the end. You also see, I think one of the things I really, really liked about it, in addition to the history, was how it showed that there are kind-hearted people. Like if you're in trouble, there are always people out there who are going to be willing to help. And I loved that. Like this kid is out on his own. He can't find his dad, and he stumbles upon people who go the extra mile to really make sure that he's safe and fed and clothed and all of that. So I give it a thumbs up. I'm not sure what Hedgepig thought of it. I would imagine he loved it because it's got all of the things that a guinea pig would love, which include Middle Ages, dogs, horses. Well, I don't know if he likes horses or not, but he certainly likes our dog. So, anyway, Adam of the Road, written under the name Elizabeth Janet Gray, who by herself, sounds to be like a pretty interesting character. All right, thanks.